Do you want to become more profitable in your business? Well, let me ask you, do you have the tools to do it? Stand by. We're going to have a great show for you today. Hi, I'm Dave Nabity with Nabity on Business. I have the pleasure of having my business partner with me today, Andy Wolfe. Andy and I have worked together for 7 years. He's got an accounting and finance background and an MBA in supply chain and logistics management. And he's also developed some pretty amazing software that helps companies become more and more profitable. And I wanted to have Andy on. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to be here, Mr. David Nabity.
David Nabity from the big city.
That's right.
Don't forget the big city.
Yeah.
Nabs Davity to all of you that are watching. Okay, you know what? I've been pretty impressed with the work that you do when you go in and start working with our clients to help them become more profitable. And I've even seen you take over companies and run them for a while and completely transform them. So I think you've got a unique gift for all of that. Let me ask you, how would you describe what you do for clients? If we turn you loose and they're willing to let you just take off and do your thing, how would you describe what you do?
Yeah, well, I think it's important at the most fundamental level, we diagnose and solve problems. That's too broad, and that doesn't tell you anything. The important thing to note is that when we get into a client case, every company of a certain size has problems, and but they aren't always obvious. So we have to go through. We kind of pride ourselves on taking a different approach to it. So we don't solve every problem with a hammer. We really take a scientific approach to problem solving.
Okay, so what kind of red lights are bleeping when you come on the scene that say, I see, we're going to need to spend some time on this? What are you seeing?
A lot of times it'll be, much of the time stuff shows up in the financial statements.
You negative earnings? Are we talking about way too much on payroll? What are we talking about? Gross profit stinking? If you look at the financials, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, I suppose a good example would be a case that we've been working for a while now. The owner called because revenue keeps going up every year, but profits keep going down. A lot of times finances are the front door, but what I like to say is finances are the final presentation of whatever diseases are happening inside the company. So it's it could show up in profits, it could show up in cash flow, it could show up in people's attitude, it could show up if the employees are talking about chaos, it just feels chaotic. Things like that.
What about having the wrong people in the wrong seats? You know what I mean? So if you have somebody that's pushed into an accountant or a CFO role that really shouldn't be there, is that anything you see as well?
Yeah, all the time. And I think that's why it's important that we take the scientific approach that I was talking about, where we develop a hypothesis, we explore different, we try to break the hypothesis. So
I went to Benson High School. I don't know what you mean by hypothesis.
Hypothesis. It's
what do you mean?
Well, it's real easy to walk into a place and the owner just says, we have a sales problem, so there's something wrong with our sales manager, or we have an operations problem. Those are easy surface level things to say, but we've got to go through the finances, sit and watch the operation. If they're a manufacturing company, walk the plant with nobody around, just watch what's happening, start to collect data, and start to figure out, hey, you say this is the problem, but we think that all these different variables are really what go into it, and so that it can get oversimplified in that way. But
so, give me some examples of the common things that you see.
Well, if we're talking about a smaller company, a lot of times they're just trying to figure out how to grow from being a mom and pop shop into becoming more of a middle market company. So mom and dad have built the place up over a long time, 30, 40 years. They went to the school of hard knocks, and they've built a nice company. But now everything lives inside dad's head, or we've kind of hired a team of of guys who've been around and they've been loyal for a long time. So they hold all the knowledge in their heads.
And they might be aging out.
And they're aging out. So
Yeah.
the business has a lot of risk. It's not really a business. It's just kind of a guy's job, a genius with 1,000 helpers. And then when we get into the larger companies, we start to notice we've got fractured data systems, meaning maybe I have accounting running over here, I've got operations running over here, I've got human resources over here, and stuff just isn't talking, and we don't have a real good way to get a whole picture of the business.
In other words, people might be isolated in certain areas and they just got their blinders on doing this thing, and that's not really integrating with the other divisions or departments?
Yeah, sales is worried about selling. They might not have a mind to gross profit margins on the sale. Operations is interested in producing. So if a new machine helps them produce faster, they want to buy it, regardless of if it's a good investment. And finance wants to optimize profits. So they might poo-poo the company outing because it's going to knock 1/3% off the profits at the end of the year. So when
they're competing interests.
Competing interests operating in silos, yeah.
What's your diagnosis process like? I mean, you go, you get invited into a company. It could have been any one of these things that you talked about. Where do you start? And then, give me the 4 or 5 steps of kind of how you work. Because when I look at the output after you guys have done your analytical work, it's pretty incredible. And it's unbelievably valuable to the owners to be able to see in real time what's really going on. So that's kind of out there in the cosmic universe of analytical work. But how would you say you start the process and work through it?
Yeah, so we use a couple of frameworks, throw some acronyms at you.
Framework. I didn't learn that in school.
Yeah,
either,
I'm a Central High grad, so
okay,
you're Benson. I mean, we're not that different. So we have a couple of frameworks that we use. When we're looking at problems, we're looking at things in a way that is mutually exclusive and collectively exhausting. So I was giving the.
You see why he's doing this, folks, and I'm not. All right, keep going.
Yeah, leave it up to us. So mutually exclusive, collectively exhausting. What that means is, as I was alluding to at the beginning, the bad way of identifying a problem is saying, I have a sales problem. Okay, what do I do with that? Let's start to break that down. Do we have what is sales? We have lead generation, we have lead conversion, we have customer retention, we have their experience from the operations side. Say the company's building a house for them or picking up their trash or whatever. Does the company look bad by the way that their operations are going? Do they have a clunky process for receiving payment from you or bad accounting records that make you look foolish? So rather than just listening to what people have to say and say, I have a problem in this area, we go in, we look at finance, we look at operations, we look at information systems, and we look at the human systems, and we start to break all of those down into their component parts until we're very confident that we've measured every part of the business and have a good sense of what's really going on.
And you figured out a way to automate how you're assembling the data?
I mean, every company is different and their data systems are different, but yeah, our team is, they're wizards at data analysis. And I mean, most of what a company is streams of data coming in and streams of data going out. So,
okay, so let's say that you've got a workbench and you've got 10 tools on the workbench, and each company is going to be different. You're going to need a different tool for each company. What would be some examples of the tools that you pull off your workbench and apply to a company?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I suppose I'll start. There is a lot of help me out with tools, because I'm thinking like just pure data analysis.
Okay, well, one could be restructuring the financial statements so they look correct and they function better. Another one would be maybe studying the way they manage their payables and receivables, and you see a meltdown in how all that is going on.
Yeah, okay, that's helpful. So, usually I'm very interested in operations. I mean, you alluded to my supply chain and logistics background. So I like to study operations heavily because, in my opinion, most of the time that's the hardest job inside a company. So we have various tools that will help us figure out what's going on in operations. And a lot of that is not sexy. That is going and sitting in a plant and watching people work and typing out what you see, and following stuff from raw materials to finished goods, and just observing the process by yourself. Financial systems, I mean, we'll do comparative analysis, so just try to normalize the financial statements year by year against competitors and nationwide benchmarks to the best you can. That'll usually start to flesh out some stuff.
So you can access databases and research facilities to be able to pull that data based on industry norms, and then be able to see how the company's lining up with the industry?
Yeah, we can get a good feel for that.
How do you go about, this is kind of a tough one, but the people element. Let's say you got a company running right, the systems are right, but you either got somebody that's being lazy, or somebody that's burnt out, or somebody who wants to show good, but they're really not performing. We talk about sales and growing sales. We worked with a company recently that had a lot of inbound calls, and they felt like they were all at capacity. They couldn't take on any more business. So the sales department kind of tapped out on the marketing, and they just lived off of whatever called and came in the door. You follow me?
Yeah.
And so revenues stayed kind of flat, and there was lots of excuses of why sales couldn't do more because, geez, our operations won't handle it. And what they should have done is gotten in the truck and gone out and met potential customers and shook hands and asked for new business in order to grow.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with people whose mindset are so clogged down and kind of tapped out in those kinds of areas?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's a counseling element to the work inside of companies. I always say that, I mean, the business problems are very easy to solve, but the people problems are a lot harder to solve. At the end of the day, the companies that we work well with are performance culture companies, or at least open to it. Rather, I compare it to, are we a team or are we a family? Because sometimes people say that their business is a family, and we don't work well with those kinds of companies. We work well with family companies, but we don't work well with companies who have a family culture, because when you're a family, your alcoholic uncle gets to come over for Thanksgiving no matter what, because he's part of the family. As to where if we're building a national championship team, I might really like the wide receiver, but if he keeps dropping the ball, he's either going to have to sit on the bench or open up a spot. So we're big on, if people check out, you have to figure out, is it our fault being the people at the top? Did the CEO not cast the right vision for the people? Has the CEO been slacking in setting a vision for the people to follow? Has he or she failed to motivate his or her next level team to know what they're doing and what they're trying to do? Because in a situation like you're describing, somebody should have intervened at some point and said, guys, this is out of whack. I mean, we know that we need to do X in revenue in order to survive, and our costs continue to climb, so revenue needs to climb at least by X. So it sounds like, I mean, there's no business planning happening.
Well, I think about in a situation like that, you might have an owner that's been at it for a long time, and they just know the world based on the way they've seen it over the last 20 years. And so the idea that you're going to kick the sales guys out the door and you're going to add one or two more people in operations to keep up with the flow of new business, sometimes they can't make that leap.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're just kind of stuck in doing things the way that they've always done it. Does your process help the owner see that if you implement this and implement that, that you actually will be able to get growth, and this is how it's going to work?
Well, this is where it's been helpful to work with what generation are you? Generation X?
I don't know.
Boomer?
Am I a boomer?
You're a boomer.
I'm a boomer. Okay.
What's been helpful about working with a boomer.
An old fat boomer.
There
is
you
what
go.
You're gonna
There
say.
you
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
Yeah. I was only a third of the way there. If it passes the Dave Nabity test, it'll communicate to anybody, which means if you can display stuff visually and graphically in a very understandable way, then it's pretty intuitive for somebody. So, hey,
are you saying I'm autistic or something in the way that I have to pull things together?
Artistic, for
Artistic,
sure.
okay.
So maybe a couple other things too. But
Okay.
But if you can say, hey, I mean, like you have a pipeline. Here's the top of the funnel, and it's going to get smaller. So how big does that pipeline need to be in order to continue to run your company? And people are usually pretty receptive to that. everybody has a different communication style.
How often do you run into a situation where you conclude the wrong people are running this company? It needs to be sold to somebody that can do it right.
Maybe 10 to 15% of the time.
So 85%, 90% of the cases, you've got something you can do to help the company become more profitable.
I would say so, yeah. So, and it comes down to the personalities of the owners and executives. If they're open to change, great. If they're not, then there's nothing you can do.
Inspiration and motivation. If you feel like you've got the good people, if you feel like the owner needs to just get a little bit better at running their company, what kind of things do you like to do to inspire managers and team members to really step up their game? Is it compensation? Is it equity? Is it deferred compensation type packages? I mean, what do you think? I mean, you can have the fear of just getting fired if you don't do your job. Is that enough? Or do you need to help people think a little bit bigger so they've got some hope and optimism that if they do change what they're doing and take steps 1 through 5, the world's going to be better? What do you think? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that's great about our firm being Nabity Business Advisors in general, is we've got ways to help people no matter where they're at. And I think, I mean, that's just a biblical principle. We're here to help pull people up out of vulnerability to the extent that they're willing to be helped. So we've got the law about don't muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. I mean, let the people participate in the work that they're doing, the fruits of the work that they're doing. So that's the place where we probably have the most defined toolbox with the things that you're talking about: deferred comp, phantom equity, those kinds of things.
Okay. What's the worst thing that you've seen that you've walked into? You don't have to name names. What's the worst thing that you saw?
Are you talking walking into your office?
Besides mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Besides mine. Don't talk about me.
Okay. I won't air your dirty laundry. Well, I don't know if this is one instance or not, but probably the most shocking thing to me has been the amount of fraud and theft that occurs inside of companies, or when people are psychologically manipulative and an owner uses their position of power to oppress employees or kind of get their power trip rocks off by holding people down. That's pretty gross. Anytime that there's addiction and infidelity and things like that, there's just going to be a lot of really deep problems. I mean, those are where companies get blown up completely when you go try to fix it.
Sooner or later.
Yeah.
Sooner or later it gets bad and there's a calamity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how long does it take you before you start to see there's fraud here going on, or there's things that are happening economically that shouldn't, and it's identified Fred over there and purchasing is the one doing it? I mean, how long does it take you to get to a point where you can really see?
Yeah, a lot of times the finances lead us down that path. There was a really interesting case just a little while ago where we were reviewing historical financials on a company, and I noticed that one balance sheet had a line item that said building, and then it was $0. And then every other balance sheet after that didn't have that building line item. And that shouldn't have been enough to raise a red flag, but for some reason we thought, let's look into that a little bit more. So I called up the title company and said, hey, do a title search on this building and see what's up, who owns it, are there any liens against it? And come to find out, this was a case of fraud. One former partner had agreed to sell a building to his other partner. They signed an agreement. The buyer had been making note payments to the seller for 4 years, thinking he was reducing principal. The seller had taken those payments, pocketed them, and then borrowed $1 million against the building. And
oh my!
So it's hard to tell when you're going to find it, but it's going to pop up through the financial statements usually, or intangible stuff. Is somebody living larger than they should be?
You kind of sound like a private investigator.
And stuff like that. I mean, we don't try to be, but you just want to be thorough.
When it comes to cost of goods, that's something that I see a lot of. It might not be manipulation, but the wrong things are in there, or there aren't enough things in there, and I'm thinking about one of these ag sales companies that we were looking at, and they had all of the payroll costs for the guys that were going out and selling in overhead expenses instead of tying the payroll and the commissions to the actual sales that are going on. How do you feel about that? I mean, if you've got $1 worth of gross sales and you know that the payroll to get that sale is 30 cents, shouldn't it be in cost of goods instead of down into overhead expenses?
Yeah, I mean, that's why GAAP accounting, generally accepted accounting principles, is useful for what it's useful for, filing a tax return at the end of the year. What I like to tell people is if the engine of the company, being revenue minus cost of goods sold, produces gross profit that's positive and in line with your industry average, your company will be successful. You can get it successful. If it's not, then you have problems. So it's critical to understand, like you're saying, how can we compare that company against another company in the industry and have any sense of if their unit economics are where they need to be. Unit economics meaning for each piece of equipment we sell, are all the inputs into it, are they less than the revenue that we're getting for?
I've seen what I just described to you more than you'd think, where cost of goods wasn't being analyzed properly. The other thing is when you start trying to put together incentives and performance indicators that you want to use in order to determine what kind of bonuses you're going to pay or what kind of stock options that you might make available or what kind of deferred compensation plans you might put together, using sales is typically a bad idea because you've got to look at what the gross profit is going to be from those sales. And yet I'll see a lot of incentive packages as, hey, well, if we have a 5% growth rate, here we go. Well, if you have that and your gross profit drops by 5% and you're no further ahead, you can't use that equation. So I guess what I'm asking you is as you start to look at indicators that can be used to benchmark bonuses or incentive packages, what kind of benchmarks do you like? Key performance indicators. What are the things that you would say to the owner, look, these are the 4 or 5 things you need to watch and you need to measure, and this is what you tie your whole incentive culture to? What would they be?
Yeah, I mean, I like to see the whole team rowing in the same direction. So like you're saying, if we have sales incentivized one way and production incentivized another way, sales is going to make sales. And to the extent that they have discretion on the price, they could very much harm profitability. So if you could sell 2 units for $1 million or drop the price down to $800,000 and sell 3 units to make an extra sale, now your commission goes up, but we have no shot at making any gross profit on it, or profitability goes way down. And same goes for production, the example I was bringing up earlier. If you're producing widgets and you spend $10 million to buy a machine that will enable you to produce double the widgets, and you're compensated based on the number of widgets that you produce instead of the gross profit that your operation generates,
after adjusting for the equipment costs.
Yeah, then
right?
you're opening yourself up to perverse incentives. So I like to align the entire team around gross profit.
All right, so this might be a tough question. What would, if an owner's watching this show, what would be some indications that the CFO is definitely not managing the accounting right? I see this from time to time where owners know something's not right, but they can't put their finger on it, and the CFO might not be handling things properly. What would be a few things the owner would look out for to see if the person handling the accounting inside is doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, what I've found in my experience that is if they're having that thought, that means that there's a problem somewhere. So you should take that seriously. If your gut's telling you something's off, something's probably off. One thing that's tough about the finance function in a business in general is say somebody grew an ag sales company from scratch. They didn't do that because they went to finance school and then decided to go build an ag company. Most of the time they didn't do that. They were good at selling ag equipment, so they built that up. And then eventually your ag equipment company gets so big that you have to hire finance people. And finance people speak a different language. And when you speak a different language and you dress nicely and you use big words, you can spin people around in circles. So if you're an owner and you kind of feel like you're getting the runaround when you're asking for explanations, that's a big symptom. Then all the stuff that would be more obvious would be debts climbing and you don't understand why, profits are eroding and you don't understand why. I mean, if it's your business, you should be ruthlessly seeking exactly what's going on. And if you don't feel like you're getting 100% clear answers, something's amiss. And I won't say that that means that there's fraud occurring, but perhaps the person isn't technically skilled enough to give you the answers that they want, or they're just, I'm the finance person, I need to know the answer, and if I don't know the answer, I've lost my identity and my worth to this company. So it's a big problem.
So what you're saying is you could have polish, you could have people in your organization that look and sound polished, but when you get down deep into the weeds of what they're really doing, they may not be doing the job they should be.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, you know the old saying, if somebody really understands something, they can explain it to a kindergartner. That should be the case inside your company. So if you don't understand it, you're going to be talking around in circles.
How, when it comes to IT seems to just be a huge thing that everybody's grappling with. And in some cases, you can go way overboard with IT and spend way too much money. In other cases, you can limp along with not spending enough in IT. Do you have any rhythm that you think needs to be there with regard to how you manage the IT in an operation?
Well, the IT from the hardware side isn't something that we work on. We work more on the data quality and the information systems.
I'm just saying IT is a percentage of expenses.
It's so hard to say. It has to serve the objectives of the company. And people shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that the next technology system is going to fix all their problems. Because there's nothing, technology is a force multiplier and it amplifies whatever underlying process you're applying it to. So if we have a bad process on paper and we apply technology to it, now we have a really bad process.
Oh boy.
We have dysfunction at scale versus if we take the time to figure out the business logic and the business problem that we're solving and then we nail it. And I mean, we get to the point of having people pass sheets of paper around the office. Here's how information flows. If we can nail that at the most fundamental level, now we can start to wrap technology around it because you've proven that you understand it. So I'm not answering your question directly, but I'm saying
you kind of are, though.
It should be proportionate to your ability to implement it wisely. It's not going to solve your problems.
Sometimes it's time for the owner just to stop and sell. And it may not necessarily be an age situation. It could be a burnout situation. Sometimes you'll have children inherit businesses from parents and they felt like they were forced to have to go into the company. And they, if they had to do it over again, they probably would have never gone there. Are there any indicators that you see that, we can go in and we can work on doing all these reforms to help the company become more profitable, but at the end of the day, this owner just doesn't have the horsepower anymore? I mean, are there any things that jump out at you that you'll look for in that way?
That comes from a lot of spending time with the owner. This is something you're excellent at, and sussing out what do they really want. I mean, that's the question that underlies every engagement that we do. What do you want? Do you want to keep doing this? Have you made enough money? Do you want to sell for X million dollars?
Well, one of the problems is just identifying where the person's mind is, but even more importantly, where the heart is.
And they don't know half the time.
No. And if a person's heart is wrecked and all the oxygen is out of the heart, you could do everything that you're talking about here and you're still not going to get to a better place.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that is really important as we talk about this.
And that's a unique thing about our firm where we get at that because you are 100% right.
Life is too short to grind away at something that you don't have the heart for anymore. But the thing that I like about what you're doing is your analytics provides real-time information to business people so they can make on-the-spot decisions about what they're doing. And it almost kind of reminds me of a war room, if you think about it. If you think about what we did in Iran, and people are in the situation room and they're watching things happen at real time, you're able to make adjustments. And what I love about the software you built is it allows you to have a war room for the business and watch in real time what's happening in the different areas. And without that management information, I don't know how you make good decisions.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think that's a differentiator. And you see our little war room in the office with the guys hammering away. You got 3 IT people in there working nonstop? Except they're not IT people. They're economics and accounting guys who have picked up IT along the way. But I want to put a big picture up there that's the physics equation for work, which would be, what is it, mass times displacement, something like that. Because I think that we forget, and this is where other consulting firms get it wrong. Like this stuff, some of this stuff is just hard work. Like when you talk about passing around pieces of paper or walking a plant at the night shift to figure out exactly what the heck is going on. Like we forget that we have to roll up our sleeves and produce work at the end of the day. And so that's a big deal.
All right. Well, folks, I hope that gives you a little bit of sense of what Andy's capabilities are. We have a heart and a passion for family-run companies, and our goal is to go deep inside the company and help it become as profitable as possible. And one of the reasons why it's so important is if Generation 1 is talking about selling the business to Generation 2, and you haven't done the things that Andy's talking about, you run the risk that Generation 2 does not run the business as profitably as 1. And if Generation 2, if it's responsible for paying principal and interest payments to mom and dad as they buy out the business, we want to make sure Generation 2 is doing the best job they possibly can at running the company and making it profitable so mom and dad get paid. It's really key. And one of the other pieces to this is to making sure that Generation 2 has the right people around them to help run and operate the business, especially if they're young, because it might be a few years yet before they're ready for a CEO role. And the older key people are going to be real important to keep around. And if you put together the business systems that Andy Wolfe is talking about, you got a really high probability of long-term success of the company and making sure the transition works well. I hope you found this valuable to you today. Give us a call at 402-391-0222 if you want to chat with us, or send us an email at nabity.com, and we'll make sure we follow up with you and get to know you and see if we can help.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Dave.
You bet.
It's fun.